Carrie, and I'm one of the librarians here at the Thomas Paine Public Library. And today I'm talking with David Wallace, former business and tech reporter for the New York Times and Reuters. He's also a journalism lecturer at the Boston University. And David will be presenting a lecture on June 10th entitled Decoding the News. David, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. David, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Carrie.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I started in the news business back before there was an internet, largely with newspapers in Florida and Philadelphia, and moved to Boston around the year 2000. I spent a fair amount of time as a free agent reporter, so not as an employee, but working again, before there was the gig economy, there were freelancers and stringers and terms of art in the journalism world that were project-based, and that tended to move toward the general business population, people working on a project basis rather than working on an employee or long-term relationship with an employer. I spent a few years teaching news and media, and that was the experience most recently that got me on the pathway to wanting to help people understand not just where the news was coming from, but how it got made.
Your program coming up is going to be on information literacy. Where did the idea for this program come from?
It started in really two places. In the classroom, when I was teaching, I saw a lot of students who had opinions but didn't have the facts necessarily to back up opinions. And that's a key skill that you need if you're going to be either a news reporter in the industry, or even if you're going into an unrelated field. You have to be able to get information, verify it, synthesize it, and share it with somebody in a reasonable way. The second phenomenon was the number of people from other countries who were really not familiar with the freewheeling American news media, and were really surprised in both the 2016 and the 2020 elections that what was being said was not necessarily what had occurred. And the idea that as a consumer, you couldn't necessarily rely on what you saw on your screen. So you had to first identify it as facts or opinion or analysis or discussion, because those are four very different things. And then you perhaps had to go into a second or third degree of verification, going to other sites on the internet, talking to other people, getting feedback. And particularly during the pandemic, the past 18 months or so, it's been really critical to get information that is local and relevant to you, as well as reliable on a state or county or national and sometimes international.
Terribly timely for what we're dealing with right now, especially with some of the attacks on the institution of journalism. Can you tell us what people who are coming to the program can expect from the event?
Well, it's a workshop. It's intended to be a conversation, and we're hoping to have people bring either sites that they visit for news. We talk about the ways that people get news, because it's not simply clicking on a TV program or opening up a publication that's on the web or in print. It really is a complicated process, both for getting the information and then perhaps checking it or discussing it. And it's become more social than ever. So there's a part of the program that's about how you get your news. Is it from a news organization that is getting to be now called standards-based news, or is it from a social feed? Is it just delivered by text message? And there are also probably a dozen or so different tools or organizations that we talk about, different websites, different educational programs, and of course, an important plug for the reference librarians who help people identify what are reliable sources of information. So it really is a give and take of how do you get your news and then what do you do with it once you've tried to share it.
We've seen a lot of conversation surrounding the institution of journalism and its trustworthiness over the last 5 years, maybe even a little bit longer. Why do you think this topic has become so necessary for all ages, not just young people, but also people who are much older?
I think because you don't have a single source of information like a TV news or a newspaper, there are a lot of people who've decided that their expertise, their feelings, their tribe, their wanting to be part of an organization, whatever that organization might be, is more valuable than having facts and information. So the idea that I can make decisions for my own good, go back to some of the anti-measles vaccine misinformation. The fact that people who can actually do spread misinformation as a method of getting people on their side, of getting donations, getting contributions in cash. It's only been accelerated. These were things that used to be done by mail or by telegraph in the early days of those technologies. So it really is about adapting to the speed and the reach that the internet gives in ways that haven't been available before. People need to know not just when they're being misinformed, but also when they're potentially being taken advantage of. There are the stories of the grandma scams of people who call and claim that just because they've gotten information about somebody that they're going to try and hoodwink grandma out of bail money or send a gift card. There are things that are related to journalism, and then there are things that are about being a media literate or media skeptical when you get information that isn't complete or isn't necessarily reliable in lots of different aspects of daily life.
With all of the research that I'm sure you have given to this topic, what was the one thing that surprised you the most?
I think the biggest surprise was how many people believe their tribe or their source of news. There really is a loyalty, whatever level that is, so that on the local level, it may be a local blog, it may be a community newspaper, it may be their neighbor Doris who has all of the neighborhood scuttlebutt. And then on the flip side, the same kind of distrust of the national media or distrust of somebody who they don't know. It really does start to parallel politics of, I like my local congressman, but I don't like Congress, or I distrust the federal government. That kind of trust and disconnect seems to be happening in journalism as well.
David, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, David will be presenting on Decoding the News Thursday night, June 10th at 7 p.m. Thank you very much for joining us for this interview, David, and we look forward to your lecture and workshop on the 10th.
Thanks for having me.